Hello there. Today we will be completing the review and preview problems 715 to 720 in the Core Connections Geometry book. 715 says, what is the relationship of triangle ABC and triangle GHJ below? Create a flowchart to justify your conclusion. So looking at these two right triangles, the first thing that I'd like to do is find the missing sides. So in triangle ABC, I know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So 10 squared is equal to 6 squared plus our missing side squared. 10 squared is 100. 6 squared is 36. We use our inverse operations and we get 64 is equal to a squared. We take the square root and we get a is equal to 8. So our missing side is 8. On triangle JGH, if we do a squared plus our other leg squared, it equals our hypotenuse squared. 3 squared is 9 plus 16 is equal to c squared. 25, take the square root of both sides, and our missing side is equal to 5. It then asked us to create a flowchart. So I am going to set up some proportions. I'm going to put my littlest side over my littlest side of each triangle. So I have 3 over 6. I'm going to put my middle over my middle, 4 over 8. So 3/6, which reduces to 1/2, is equal to 4/8, which reduces to 1/2, which is also 5 over 10 is equal to 1/2. So we can say that triangle ABC is similar to triangle HGJ because of the side similarity property. When we look at 716, it tells us that the area of the trapezoid below is 56 centimeters squared, and it asks us what is the height. So we then need to refresh our memory, and to find the area of a trapezoid, we are going to take base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 and multiply that by the height. So we have some information to plug in, and we know that base 1 is 6, base 2 is 10, divided by 2, and then times the height. So 16 divided by 2 gives us 8. We do know, remember, the area they told us is 56, so we can replace that. The inverse of multiplication is division, so we can see that the height of our trapezoid is 7 centimeters. Example 717 says line L is perpendicular to the line 6x minus y equals 7 and passes through the point 0, 6. So in order to graph this line, we want to first plot the point 0, 6. So you don't go right or left at all, and you go up to the point 0, 6. They then told us it is perpendicular to the line 6x minus y equals 7. So if we solve that for y by using our inverse operations, we get y is equal to positive 6x minus 7. When we see that something is perpendicular, we know that our slope should be the opposite reciprocal. So our slope of our given line should be negative 1/6. So from the point that it passes through, 0, 6, if you go down 1 over 6, you can then plot your other point, connect your dots, and we just drew line L. Line M is parallel to the line y equals 2/3 x minus 4 and passes through the point -3, -1. So we're going to find the point -3, -1 and plot that. If we have a slope that is parallel, it means that our slope is the same of our equation. So if we go up 2 over 3, we can graph our second line, and then it asks where do these lines intersect. So once they are graphed, line M and line L, we can see in fact that our two lines intersect right here, and that is the ordered pair 6, 5. 7-18 says examine the geometric relationship of each diagrams below. For each one, write and solve an equation to find the value of the variables. Name any geometric property or conjecture that you use. So looking at this first picture, we know that these smaller arcs are all congruent. So they must all equal m. We know that this larger arc equals 5m minus 28. So we can set 5m minus 28 equal to 3m to account for all of this arc. We can then use our inverse operations. So move the 28 by adding it, subtract your 3m, divide by 2, and we get the measure of angle M is equal to 14 degrees. Looking at letter B, we know that in this parallelogram, if we take these angles, they are supplementary. So if we have 3x plus 38, add it to 7x minus 8, it should equal 180 degrees. We combined our like terms to get 10x plus 30 equals 180. Use our inverse operations to get 10x is equal to 150. Divide by 10 and we get x is equal to 15 degrees. When we look at C, it says triangle ABC below is an equilateral triangle. So in an equilateral triangle, we know that all of our sides are the same length. So by definition, if this half of our base is n plus 4, this half also needs to be n plus 4. And then this whole side BC should be equivalent to side AB. So we can say 3n minus 1 is equal to 2 times n plus 4. 3n minus 1 is equal to 2n plus 8. Use your inverse operations, so subtract your 2n, add your 1, we get 1n is equal to 9. So 9 units is what n represents. In letter D, C is the center of circle below. AB is equal to 11x minus 1. And CD is equal to 3x plus 12. We know that the radius is half of the diameter, so if we multiply the radius by 2, we can then set it equal to the diameter. Distribute. Use our inverse operations. So when we subtract our 6x, we get 5x. When we add our 1, we get 25. Division is the inverse of multiplication, and we get x is 5 units. 719, in the Shape Factory, you created many shapes by rotating triangles about the midpoint of its sides. Remember that the midpoint is the point exactly halfway between each endpoint of a line segment. However, what if you rotate a trapezoid instead? So carefully draw the trapezoid above on graph paper along with the given midpoints. So I drew the original trapezoid. Down here you can see each side is multicolored, and then I plotted the midpoints for each of those segments on either side. I then rotated each of those about the midpoint. So you can see the green one rotated up. When I rotated about this midpoint, we formed our orange. When we rotated along this midpoint, we formed our purple trapezoid. When we rotated among this midpoint, we formed our red trapezoid. So we can see that when we rotated the orange and the purple, these formed parallelograms with our original trapezoid. And you can see when we rotated the green and the red that we formed one convex figure and one non-convex figure. (7-20) says on graph paper, plot the points A, -5, 7, and B, 3, 1. So you can see on the graph paper below, I did in fact plot A and B in their appropriate locations. It then said find the length of AB. So in order to find the length, I can see that this side of my triangle is 6 units. I can see that the base of my triangle is 8 units. I then, because I have a right triangle, can use the Pythagorean theorem. 6 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. 36 plus 64 equals 100. When we take the square root of 100, we get c to equal 10. So the length of AB is equal to 10 units. It then says locate the middle and label it C. What are the coordinates of C? So the coordinates of C are -1, 4. It then says find AC. Can you do this without using the Pythagorean theorem? Well, because we know from B that C is the midpoint, we should be able to take the length of line AB, which is 10, and divide it by 2. So AC is equal to 5 units.